Hello, welcome. This video is about confidence, and in it I'm going to share all of the things that I know have helped me with my confidence and that you can apply in your life to improve your confidence too. I do want to hear all the tips and tricks that you use and have found successful so I can learn more too. But also I want to hear what you have to say so as we learn together we can teach more people through our comments and discussions and questions and create a community of learners where we are uplifting and empowering all the people. So, confidence. Firstly, what is it exactly when we are talking about confidence? What is it? In my definition, confidence is that feeling of certainty in our capability. And we often have a feeling of certainty in our capability when we are acting within our comfort zone. So this is especially relevant for when we're leaving our comfort zone. Our comfort zone meaning that space which we exist in that we are fine, we are experienced, we are masters of. For example, most of us are very confident that we could make a sandwich. We are confident that we can get out of bed in the morning, for example, that we know how to take a shower, that we are able to introduce ourselves to, like give our mom a hug. Everyone has unique situations, but there's certain areas that don't need a lot of confidence. Maybe introducing ourselves to a stranger is a little bit scary, or at the job interview, or at the sporting event that you're competing in. Whatever it may be, something that's out of your comfort zone. And what is a comfort zone? It depends a lot on your perception of pain and pleasure, of what you're capable of and what you're not capable of. So our mind is key in confidence. So let's ask ourselves a question: why do behaviors happen? Why do we do things and why don't we do things? I think, at least this is what my life has taught me and what my studies have taught me, that in the simplest way, we act out of pain and pleasure. There's deeper complexities to this, and there's conditioning, and there's social psychology, but we act out of pain and pleasure generally. So, when we perceive the pain of continuing to do what we're doing, I'll use an example instead. So, for example, in the morning, you're getting out of bed, and there's a point when it's too risky to stay in bed any longer, and you have to get out. So there's some pleasure of leaving the bed because now you're avoiding pain. And you can act to avoid pain or to gain pleasure or some blend of both. For example, when we're eating food, we eat until we're a certain amount satisfied. But when we get to the point where it starts to hurt our stomach, if we ever do go that far, we stop when that pain is now bigger than the pleasure. It's Thanksgiving weekend right today in Canada, and sometimes I remember when I was little, I would eat as much as I could on Thanksgiving, and I would eat and eat and eat, and then I'd look like a beach ball. Not really, but kind of in my head. It felt like I was a beach ball, and then I would feel like I would only stop when it hurt too much to eat anymore. Same thing on road trips when I'm in the car. We're driving the car, and I didn't ever want to stop the car to have to go pee. However, and because it caused me a little bit of pain, I felt embarrassed because I was usually the first person to need to go pee. And however, there became a point when the pain of not peeing was greater than the pain of embarrassment. So I acted. Same thing with pleasure, where say we're going to talk to a new person, and maybe the opportunity or the goal or this feeling of success of landing a job outweighs the fear that we have about interviews, or the fear of failing a class outweighs the fear of giving a presentation. And so we act out of this pain and pleasure, and our pain and pleasure decision making is based on our perception of what is going to be pleasurable and what is going to be painful. Sometimes we think things are going to be pleasurable and we're wrong. So it's important to not make things false or true. We want to be honest. So, for example, sometimes we think eating all that food will be a good idea. And then later we're sluggish, we feel bloated, we going to the bathroom's painful, we can't go and move around, we've got to lay down and digest, and maybe we gain weight, we don't want to gain weight, whatever it may be. But at the moment we thought, hey, this is a good idea, I'm going to eat this cake, I'm going to eat this pie, I'm going to eat the whole turkey, whatever it is, That's a thing that happens for some people. Whereas sometimes we also perceive the pain wrong. To give another food example, because I guess that's where my mind is right now. Sometimes we're like, food, we think we need to starve ourselves to be healthy or skinny. Coming from the personal training background of over 5 years now, 5.5, many people I met would think they can't have a nice, juicy, yummy, satisfying meal unless it is very stripped of all the fats. And quickly people learn that we need fat and that it's important for our well-being. However, there's a perception that it will be painful if we give ourselves this fatty meal. In fact, if you have a balance of healthy fats, it can be very satisfying and healthy for you and pleasurable. As long as it's not too much or too little, there's a balance there. And so it's very important when we're trying to figure out, when we are succeeding in figuring out how to master our confidence, about pain and pleasure and our perception around it. So I'm going to go through a few key points now that I've laid a foundation. Number 1, first tip, like the rest of the steps you can do in any order, but the first one I think should be the one that you do first. Perhaps it comes a different way, and we're all different human beings, but that's fine. Generally, I would recommend number 1, which is to stop fighting the fear of, I'm not confident, I'm not good enough, I've never met a person, and I've worked with over 5,000 people, I've never met a person that hasn't had some level of confidence. I wouldn't even call it an issue, because that's, again, like, I'm trying to stop being not confident, I'm trying to get more confident, I'm battling with my emotions. Stop fighting, accept it. This is my top tip, and it's very powerful when we start to do it, and it can be very hard. If it's hard, that's okay too. So, top tip is to start to accept that feeling insecure, or feeling lack of confidence, or feeling afraid, or whatever it may be, these types of emotions, anxious and so on, is okay. You don't have to control the uncontrollable. And ironically enough, that when we start to release our grip, we open up space for a different type of control to occur. So when we stop fighting and we let those emotions be felt and move through us, it creates a space for that feeling of confidence and certainty to emerge. But the more we dwell and focus on those things that are scaring us, the more reasons we get not to act, the more reasons we get to shrink. And that's not uplifting, that's not inspiring, that's painful. And that holds us back from our dreams. So accepting that it's okay to feel insecure, that it's okay for lack of confidence to come up, and that we don't have to fight that and battle that, that we can accept that. That's where I would start. The next thing that I would do, that I do generally, is your confidence comes from your inner dialogue with yourself. All these things so far are a discussion of, some of it's going on in our subconscious, some of it's conscious, but we're having an inner dialogue. I should do that, I shouldn't do that, I'm confident enough for that, I'm not confident enough for that. If I do that, I'm going to fail anyway, what's the point? If I don't do that, I'll feel like a failure, but like the list goes on, but we're having an inner dialogue. And our inner dialogue relates to our self-worth and self-knowledge. And so the better that we know ourselves and what we want in life, that we know who we are, what we're here for, and so on, the more clarity we have there, the better we're able to establish our self-worth and the action steps to take going forward, and so on. So your self-image, your self-concept, your inner dialogue, and a lot of our beliefs that we have can be built up on assumptions that aren't actually true. For example, let's say that you're a kid and you're in school, and you put your hand up when the teacher asks about a math question. And in the math question is like 6 plus 6, and you tell the teacher it's 66, and you think you're so smart because you're just learning addition and you think you did it. And the class bursts out laughing because apparently everyone else knew it was 12. And you feel very embarrassed. The teacher even smirks, thinks you're a little, it's cute, but they grin and you interpret that as, oh my god, I did something wrong, I failed. And that was a terrible experience. And so you've experienced this, you've felt it, now you go home. And every time you go over this moment in your head, you're wiring your brain again to tell yourself, that was a bad experience. And the implicit message there is, don't do that again, don't do that again, don't do that again. And really the experience only happened one time. However, you keep replaying it in your head, and say you replayed it in your head 100 times. Now you have 100 times that emotion of, I don't want to do that again. Versus maybe you don't even have any examples, maybe you have a few, of the successful cases. And this is why fear can be sometimes so crippling, that confidence can sometimes shrivel up. Because if we dwell on a circumstance, say like, the speaking out in class can be a really good example because a lot of people go through that. Another one is in relationships, where if you go through this time when you break up with your loved one, and you might be going over in your head, I love her, I love her, I love her, we should be together, we should be together. And the more you do that, you give yourself more and more reasons to want to ask that person to take you back. Another way it could go is that you develop many, many reasons that that person was a bad person, or that you are better off without her, whatever it is, or him, or whatever. And so you're amplifying it by going over it in your head again and again, by visualizing it, by affirming it. And it's amazing how when teachers share how important it is to do mindset rituals and visualizations and affirmations and incantations, and people think, well, that doesn't work. We're doing it all the time. The idea that it doesn't work is an incantation to close you off to it. We're always having these patterns like, this is the way I should dress today. I'm a good person. I'm a bad person. I'm attractive. I'm not attractive. We're telling ourselves things all the time. Those beliefs are creating our reality. And so your inner dialogue is going to influence your confidence. And in the beginning, it's a little bit tough to just magically shift your inner dialogue. So the rest of the steps help us do that. So keep in mind that as you improve your self-worth and as you improve your understanding of yourself, your confidence will increase. And one way to make this improve is by digging into all the beliefs that you have and actually listening to them, seeing if they're assumptions, seeing if they're limiting to you, asking yourself why they're there. For example, I used to have a belief where I felt like I'm not good enough, so I need to go improve myself all the time. And it made me, I had a lot of trouble listening because I was always talking to people and trying to get them to affirm what I was saying. So I would want to talk first and control the conversation so that person could, I wanted to hear the words, wow, you're so smart, or what you're saying really makes sense, that's great advice. And I was starting to get feedback from some people that I wasn't a good listener though. And I was like, well, maybe I'm not a good listener. And if I started to internalize that, and that made me unconfident when I was in my relationships and I was trying to listen. I was like, well, I'm not a good listener. And I was like, but when I started to think about why I was feeling like I was not a good listener, and I found underneath that there was this idea that I'm not good enough, so I need to prove myself my worth, it made me chatty, it made me a talker. And so when I went deeper now, I'm feeling insecure. Why am I insecure? And I found many different things, but when I went back into my childhood, I found that I had always been trying to make my father proud. And I wanted to make my father proud, but I have no issues with my father, but generally he doesn't get really excited and express love and emotion in a really emphatic way. But that's generally how I feel love. So when my dad would say, good job, son, I'm proud of you, I would feel like he's just saying that, and it's not I'm not good enough yet, I'll try better. And so I developed this feeling of somewhat of shame, but this feeling of not good enough, and that made me, it was way back to the childhood. Underneath that, after feeling down for a while, underneath that feeling, I found this authentic light that wants to express and love and share and inspire. And I think that's what we're here on earth to do, is to love and connect and be and grow and evolve life as we let it flow through us. But it got a little bit jumbled up in fear, and that's perfectly okay. Once I started accepting it and stopped fighting it, and started to engage with knowing myself a little clearer, and that improved my self-worth, it improved my inner dialogue, and I started to become more confident and clear, not faking it, but authentically actually feeling it, because that's what we want, again, that feeling of certainty. So now we're moving forward to what I call number 3, zoom and angles of perception. So I'm going to go through some points here. And what I mean by zoom is you can zoom into an issue very narrowly, you can zoom out, you can look at things from all different angles, and when you look at things from different angles, some of the things that we've been telling ourselves about why we're not confident, they start to shrivel away. Or some of the reasons why we are telling ourselves not to take action, they release when we look at it from a different angle. They're not actually true. Remember, fear, you got an acronym I like to use, is false evidence appearing real, false evidence appearing real, or face everything and rise, face everything and rise. And so face everything and rise, and don't let that false evidence hold you back. So here's some things that I do to make myself more confident. Number 1, just random order really. If you keep going, if you keep learning and adapting and challenging yourself and collecting experiences and collecting reflections on those experiences and changing your strategy and acting again and collecting more information and refining that process, your success is inevitable. As long as you fully commit to taking an action, learning from it, and going forward. You're going to get close. Every mistake you make is going to teach you a little bit clearer what you do want, what you don't want, what you need to do to get what you want. It's going to make you clearer and clearer, and it's going to get you closer and closer. And if you accept the process and start to enjoy where you're at right now, it's not going to be such a burden. It's going to be an authentic process of growth and change. Because if we're alive, we're going to be growing and changing. When we're stagnating, we don't feel alive. And that's another thing we want, is to feel alive. And a side note, if you want to feel alive, make sure that you're eating great, and moving your body. Your feelings are going to be directly connected to how you're speaking, what words you're using, what images you're having in your head, how you're holding your body, and your exercise. And all this stuff makes up our biochemistry that creates the chemistry in our brain that creates the feelings and the emotions and the thoughts. So you're not going to feel alive and full of life and passion if you're not taking care of your exercise and your food and your thoughts. And you're not going to feel confident either. So that's very important too. Another one to remember is that if you don't build your dream, and maybe you don't have a clue what your dream is yet, that's okay. Start somewhere, accept where you're at, and stop fighting it and let yourself begin. Slow progress is better than no progress. And so if you don't start working on your dream, if you don't build your dream, someone else is going to hire you to build theirs. Maybe you'll get lucky and find a team, or create a team, even better than luck, because leaving our lives up to luck is no strategy for success. You will create a team where your visions are shared. So somebody can hire you where your dream is in alignment with their vision. It's okay to have that experience. But what's not okay is if you have a dream of inspiring people and you settle for something that is not related to your goal or not related to your dream. And so you ended up being hired to build someone else's dream. Build your dream and find other people who share your dream and that their dream is the same, and then you build it together and you have rich relationships, mutually uplifting experiences. and all of the values that you guys want to have. And don't settle for anything less than that. Start with wherever you're at, and as long as your trajectory is getting closer and closer, it's like an arrow going toward a bullseye. It might be a little bit off, but if it makes a little shift, it gets a little closer, little shift, little closer. Suddenly it's on the mark. And that's good. Same thing with golf. When you take a golf swing and you hit it 1 degree off and you're in the rough. But maybe you hit it 1 degree not off and you're hole in one or right in the green. So those little tiny shifts, those little trajectories, don't pay too much attention to the moment to moments. Look at the trajectory that you're on. Even watching a presentation like this can make a person insecure because they're like, I'm not like that yet, I'm not there yet, I'm not good enough, you're not getting me. Well, you can start by getting 1 micro nano gazillimeter, whatever it is, really tiny amount, closer. And when we are if we are in this state where we're going downhill with our life, just to use a metaphor, it's really hard just to suddenly go from downhill to straight back up. Like, things are going bad, oh no, they're good. It doesn't usually go like that. Yes, we have our flows, but generally here's how it goes. You go up, you go down, and there's a moment where your down starts to slow, and then you bottom out, and then you start to go up, and then you bottom out, and then you start to go down. And so when you are feeling not very confident, what you can do is this. You can make it a goal not to magically become confident, but just to become a little bit less not confident. So you're starting to erase some of the lack of confidence. That will make space for confidence, and it'll allow it to flourish. And when you accept it and stop fighting it, that becomes all the more possible. And that acceptance is a lot of what slows our downward fighting and resistance and negative energy. That acceptance is a lot of what allows us to turn the ship around. So you start to build confidence from there. So here's another one. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If you don't take action, you're not giving yourself very good odds of realizing whatever it is that you're after. So say you want to have a successful athletic career. If you never go to the gym, and you never find a coach, and you never send 1,000 calls to find a mentor, and call 1,000 gyms to find the best gym, and if you never travel and put yourself out there, and if you never race, and if you never, what are the odds that you're ever going to achieve your dream? And you can sit there and think, well, I'm not good enough, but you don't know. You're making an excuse that's giving you a bad chance of succeeding. Give yourself a chance, and give yourself more than one chance. Give yourself hundreds of chances, and every time you take one, learn from each experience, and know that Thomas, whoever made the light bulb, Edison or Tesla or whoever, they tried that a gazillion times. Same thing when they're trying to make the airplanes and the cars and the computers and the phones. It takes time. Sometimes it took generations. People were trying to fly when Da Vinci was making flying machines 500 years ago. It took more than, people get an idea, maybe one day we'll fly. It took a long time. Maybe we'll have skyscrapers that can reach to the moon. Well, we're not there yet, but people are dreaming about it. It'll take time. Look at Star Trek and Star Wars. They're going to travel space. Why won't we travel space? Of course we will. But it'll take time. And if you never take actions toward it, that dream won't get realized. And so remember that. The next one is, don't listen to the people most people you don't need to listen to anyway. Listen to the people who you respect, who have the success that you want to have. And they're just people when you're thinking about, you got to believe that you're great and love yourself and don't think too much, because you are great. And don't listen to the naysayers, the people that don't believe in you. Because if you listen to these average people, you're going to get average thinking. You're going to take average actions, you're going to get average results, you're going to get an average life. And I'm sure that if you're watching this, you don't want average. You want something a little bit more, even if you're in a dark place right now. And if you're in a fantastic place, you're continuing to grow, and that's what people do. We grow, we evolve, we learn, we change, we flourish, we thrive. And we don't do that with average one of my teachers calls conventional wisdom conventional bullshit. He says conventional gives you conventional results, and the average Joe isn't having the results that you want, so you can't live off that. And if there was common sense, then people would actually have this common sense, but there's not a common logic because people are irrational. And so don't listen to the naysayers, just listen to a select few people that you admire, that have the success in the areas that you want to have, that are, for example, if you want a loving relationship, but you take all your advice from people who have broken relationships, don't expect to have great relationships. If you want to have a healthy financial situation, you got to take information from people who have good financial situations. Same thing with fitness, same thing with mindset, same thing with if you want to learn about how to compute better, or if you want to learn how to design better, better artists, or better spiritual teachers, and so on and so forth. You want to learn things from people who have the things that you want to have. They have fruit on the tree, so to speak. And this is a big one for those of us who like to have status and eyes on us. Remember that the bland lead the bland. And so if you are bland, you're going to get more people that are copying you to be bland. You're setting an example for people to be bland. And what I mean by bland in this case is you're setting an example to live your life without confidence. You're setting an example to shrink, to give in to fear, and accept that that's what you've been doing, and that's completely fine. But in the process of going forward and turning your ship around and redirecting your arrow and shifting your golf swing, in the process of that, it is to remind yourself not to set an example for people to live their life small. Set an example for people to live their life to the fullest in their own unique way. Set an example for them to whatever you value, but if it's authenticity, if it's compassion, if it's happiness, if it's kindness, if it's spirit, if it's harmony with nature, maybe it's music, maybe it's athleticism, maybe it's intellectual excellence, maybe it's research, maybe it's new discoveries, maybe it's science, maybe it could be many things. But you want to make sure that whatever it is, you're staying true to that and setting an example for that. Because if you're setting an example to shrink, that's exactly what you're doing. But you can do so much more. And I assure you that one of the quickest paths to fulfillment is to let yourself grow, let yourself give and contribute, and allow yourself to appreciate the process, to focus on what you're grateful for. Not on the things that you don't have, but on the things that you do have. And so, absolutely crucial. Set an example for being, this is what I try to set an example for being an inspiring example of the full potential of what it means to be a human being. The full potential of the human heart, human mind, human body, and human spirit. Something that is an example that uplifts people and that unlocks capacities that they never knew that they had, that helps them live their life to the fullest in their own unique way, and that helps all of us give and live the lives that we want to live. And so, I can't do that when I shrink, and I do get moments when I get nervous and insecure, especially when I'm treading in new waters, when I'm trying new things. But when I remind myself all of these different angles of perceptions and ways of looking at things, there's always a way to look at it so I can act. And that's what you're looking for, because you control your perception. And from that, you can shift your pain and pleasure, and that'll shift your decision, and that'll create a feeling of confidence with the questions that you're asking yourself and the things that you're focusing on, the way that you're controlling your body, the foods you're feeding yourself, the way that you're exercising, and so on. And so, another thing to remember is that we can't get confident unless we take game shots. Game shots are like when you are in the game, say you're Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan can't build confidence to shoot game-winning shots unless he shoots game-winning shots. You can't get the confidence to knock interviews out of the park unless you actually go to the job interviews. You can't get success in whatever you're trying to achieve if you're taking 50% speed at say you're in your room and you're practicing, like for example, this presentation is great. I love doing what I'm doing right now. But this doesn't build confidence, full confidence, for talking to a room with 100,000 people or 10 million people. I'm very confident to speak to 1,000 people. I've done that before. 5,000 people, maybe I haven't done that before. Next time, soon. And to actually, this is like practice. It's very useful. But to really get full confidence and mastery and ownership, you have to practice at 100% speed. So that means taking game shots. That means to get good at talking to girls, you can't talk to your mom in practice. You have to talk to the girls. To get good at talking to boys, you gotta talk to boys. To get good performing songs, you have to perform them in front of people. This is my guitar. And so on and so forth. So think about full speed. So if you're making an excuse to yourself that I'll just read some more books and then I'll be able to talk about what I'm going to talk about, that'll help you. But that'll only help you at 50% speed. You have to go do things at 100% speed. 100%. Real life situations. That's why it's important to experience and put ourselves out there. And then collect data and refine and revision and adapt and evolve and succeed and continue to do that process of clarifying and growing and learning. Another one is presence. And so when you are present and in the moment, you can be not in the future, not in the past, but enjoying the actual act of doing. And when you're enjoying the actual act of doing, in this situation, you're releasing the result and the outcome. You're fully conscious of what you're in that moment, but you're not so caught up in what if I don't get looked at? What if people don't love me? What if I get insulted? What if I, so on and so forth. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I, those types of thoughts, let them go and be just in the moment of do whatever you're here to do absolutely fully. So for example, when I'm doing this presentation, I could be saying, like, what if no one watches this? What if no one cares? What if I sneeze in the video and I have to restart? That's a really lousy way for me to think. And so I don't think that way. I just sit here and stand here and be here to my absolute best capacity and enjoy the process of sharing all the things that I've learned in my life around how to master confidence. There's not a person in my life that I've ever met that doesn't have some sort of challenge with confidence. And that's perfectly okay. Acceptance. Stop fighting it. Let it be. And then grow from there. And so, same thing with presence. Come into the now and enjoy the process of doing. A slightly different angle than that, another angle, is to focus on the result. So sometimes it's like you're giving a presentation. You might be giving a presentation, you're like, well, the process might suck. You're like, I don't want to do the work. I don't like being in front of the camera, but the result is worth it because it's going to give value to people. So if that's motivational to you, then use that motivation. That's why when you have more knowledge of yourself, you can know how to motivate yourself. You know how to talk to yourself to get yourself to do things. It's very important. So if you know that, say, you're in school and you're like, well, I want to be a lawyer, I know that. I want to be a doctor, I know that. But I don't enjoy the process, then don't focus as much on the process. You don't have to force yourself to learn to love the process and to be completely present. You're the master of your mind. You can focus on the outcome and how it's going to be worth it. Make sure you're not lying to yourself. Keep getting yourself knowledge. But you can definitely focus on the outcome and the results and why it's worth it to take actions that sometimes you might not enjoy. Say you're taking a job that you don't really want to do, but it's a stepping stone. This is okay. Say and so on and so forth. So those are some really good examples. That's a majority of those are the majority of the angles that I use. So I'll move on. I'll move on to some of these next thoughts that I have that are crucially important. So these angles of perception, where did I learn them from? I learned them a lot from myself, but where did myself get made? We get made. We're a mold of all the things that influence us. At least that's one of my opinions. And what influences us? Everything influences us. In my belief, your parents, your genes, your friends, your family, your upbringing, your schooling, your media, the nature around you, the air that you breathe, the sounds that you listen to, the way that you decide to let that information in or unconsciously let it in. How could the energy of the ocean not influence you? Of course, people go to the water and like, wow, I feel something. How could a hug not influence you? And same way, does the forests influence us? Do the wars that are going on and the suffering, and so do the moons and the stars and the galaxies. All of these things are influences, some closer than others. So our angles of perceptions, the way that we see the world, our mindsets, our mental representations, they often come from the relationships that we have around us, because those are so directly influencing us. And so to build confidence, we need to build the relationships with confident people. And they're going to teach us ways of how they look at things to feel confident, how they motivate themselves to do things, how they learn more about themselves, how they improve their self-worth, how they go about self-dialogue, how they became more accepting and allow themselves to start. As opposed to saying, for example, people who think that they need to be perfect. This was me a few years ago. They might not start anything other than what they're already good at. And that's a very limiting box to put yourself in. But when you say, some progress is better than no progress, slow better than none, and progress over perfection, then you start to this becomes growth mindset, investor's mindset, that you can delay some gratification now for that investment later that's going to grow and mature. And so when you're around more confident people, you're going to learn more ways to do that. And so that's one of the biggest points. We could put this one as first two. Your whole life will change if you change the people that you're around. As many wealthy and intelligent and successful people in their own unique way have said, you're the average of the 5 closest people around you. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And the beautiful thing is, you are free to choose your friends. You can choose whoever you want to choose. And when you're deciding to live your life, commit to excellence. If you're in a relationship or a partnership or a friendship with someone who it doesn't serve you anymore, it's not beneficial for both of you, then get out. Life is much too precious. Here's another angle. Life is much too precious to waste. Start now. Remove that friendship that is no good anymore. Add a new one that is good. And if you're afraid about reaching out to thousands of people, hundreds of people, tens of people, to find that new person, maybe you'll be alone for a while, whatever it may be, put it into context. Do you want to live that quiet desperation? Do you want to be an example for that? Masquerading all of the turmoil that's inside? Or would you like to be an example for other people to shine their light, to make the most of their lives, to step up and make the most of their relationships, and to be fully committed to their success and their excellence? What would you like to do? What example would you like to set? And so it's completely worth it to surround yourself with the people who inspire you, who you inspire them, who you learn from each other. Some people who you teach, because we learn tremendously well by teaching others. And some people who are on your level that you're working with, and some people who are above your level who you're learning from. It's important to have mentors. It's important to have people on your level to collaborate with and build with. And then it's important to teach and give back. That's how we uplift our society. And so that model helps us grow. Very important who you surround yourself with. And then, like I said in the beginning, what is confidence? It's this feeling, it's a belief, it's a certainty, and we develop it through practice. And so by firstly, I say accepting what's going on for us, allowing ourselves to stop fighting it and befriending our emotions. Your mind and your body has been waiting your whole life for you to be best friends with it. You know that saying that says that we're our own worst enemy? Flip that around. That's conventional wisdom. Conventional BS. Flip that around into, I'm my own best friend. I'm my biggest cheerleader. I'm my biggest fan. I'm my success coach. And so you change it into say, I'm going to befriend my emotions. Don't start saying yourself that I hate my life and I'm not going to ever be confident. Change that. And if that's And if you can't change it completely, soften it. I'm currently struggling with where I'm at right now. I spend as much time as I can focusing on the good. Some days are harder than others. The more what we focus on, we give energy to, and what we give energy to grows. Whether that's a belief, or an action, or a person, or a relationship, or whatever it is, where attention goes, energy flows. Where energy flows, grows. Whew. And so, when we take acceptance, and then we go into our inner dialogue and our understanding of ourselves, understanding of why actions happen, pain and pleasure, perception, angles of perception, and our zoom in and out of the situation, and knowing that we get to choose our perception. We get to choose these things. We get to choose who we surround ourselves with, and how our relationships will influence our mindsets in the way for better or for worse. So best to surround ourselves with people who inspire us, people who we would like to be more like, who we admire, and release the people who that's not true for us anymore. And you might even find that when you come across a person who they were once inspirational, you have to let them go to that. As you grow, you're going to be inspired by new things. And so that's that. And then keep reminding yourself what confidence is, and then you can control these feelings as you practice that. Of course, when we have a pattern in our heads and in our physiology and in our focus and in our daily lives of how to be really lacking confidence, it's hard to shift. So of course why would you ever think that you can control your confidence? Sometimes you need medications. Sometimes you need all sorts of things, because we're at different paths of here's confident, here's where we are. And it might take a lot of things to shift. But making that shift is important, because you eventually get there. You start to get toward living your life to the fullest and giving and living in the way that you want to live. So by surrounding yourself with better people and in filling your mind with better books and better knowledge and better music and feeding your body better things and working in better jobs and dressing yourself in more loving ways and touching yourself in more loving ways and putting yourself in more loving, intimate partnerships and breathing in more beautiful ways, and you have tremendous capacity, but you have to say, what sort of life do I want to live? And you have to shift from this victim mindset of life happens to me and shift to I can create life, and life flows through me and I'm going to allow it to flow, and I am life. There's different ways of being, and you can choose that and start to nurture the new pattern. Even if it's very subtle shifts, pay attention to the trajectory. That's all for this presentation. I look forward to hearing more back from you. What you thought was helpful, what you currently do. If you have used some of these and they're already very successful, some tips for me, some tips for other people, tag people. Let's learn and grow and thrive together. Remember that this life is much too precious to waste. And so, our time is limited, just like Steve Jobs said. And really, in the big grand scheme of things, we're going to die someday. We're already naked, like he says. And so, you have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. What's the worst thing that can happen? You could die. That's going to happen anyway. So, you better start living now. Robin Williams, Carpe Diem, seize the day. Fill yourself with examples and references for why you should start, and you will. And let's shift out of that space where it's all about me. Life is so hard. Why me? Why me? That's to me. Think about how you can give to other people. Think about how you can love and change your zoom so there's a world out there that you can be evolved in, and that this world got this way by people just like you and me. You can do things. You can make impacts. And it's incredibly possible. How did the world get this way? Of course there's people just like you and me. And the greatest gift that I believe we can give to anyone is to believe in them fully. To demonstrate that belief. And this is one of the ways that I believe in you. And if you've watched to the end of this video, you got what it takes, 100% certain. And so I look forward to building our dreams together and hearing from you and connecting from you and to our infinite success and contribution and making this world an even more glorious place than it already is. And it's amazing. Bye for now.